When you see a major event unfold on the news, a war starting, a government falling, a monumental decision being made, what's your first thought? Many of us instinctively say, we are witnessing history. But is that really true? Is what's happening today, right this second, actually history? The answer might surprise you. The simple truth is, not every big event becomes history the moment it happens. So, where do we get it wrong? Many people believe that history is written in real time. But what we're watching unfold is not history, it's news. When an event is still in progress, the atmosphere is charged, emotions are running high. Fear, anger, and outrage often control our reactions and shape public opinion. During these times, governments and powerful groups carefully control the narrative, and the media, under immense pressure, often shows us only a fragment of the full picture. The complete truth is almost never visible in the heat of the moment. We're seeing a story being told, but not necessarily the history that will be remembered. So, if today's events aren't history, when does history actually begin? Historians generally agree on a crucial element. History needs time. A lot of time. Most experts suggest that an event needs about 20 to 25 years before it can be properly studied as history. Why so long? Because time acts as a filter. With the passage of years, emotions cool down, and the immediate shock wears off. The power of propaganda fades. Hidden documents, classified reports, and secret memos are eventually released to the public. Witnesses who might have been afraid to speak feel safer sharing their accounts. And most importantly, different sides of the story begin to emerge, painting a much fuller, more complex picture. Only then can we start to genuinely understand the causes, the consequences, and the true meaning of what happened. This is precisely why most universities and academic institutions treat recent events as current affairs or political science, not as history. There's a clear line, and it's drawn by the passage of time. It's really important to understand the difference between three things people often confuse: news, analysis, and history. They are not the same. News is what's happening right now. It's fast, immediate, and constantly changing. Analysis is how someone tries to explain it. It's often filled with opinions, predictions, and interpretations based on limited information. Think of the pundits you see on TV. They're offering analysis, not history. And then there's history. History is what remains true after the dust has settled, after emotions have subsided, and after the story has been tested and re-examined from every possible angle. News is fast, analysis is opinion-based, but history is slow, careful, and built on a foundation of evidence that has withstood the test of time. Let's look at some real examples that make this crystal clear. Think back to 9/11. When it happened in 2001, the world was plunged into a state of shock, fear, and confusion. In that emotionally charged environment, major decisions were made, wars were justified, new laws that curbed civil liberties were passed, and asking tough questions was often seen as unpatriotic. The narrative was simple and clear. It was us versus them. But now, more than 2 decades later, the conversation has changed dramatically. Historians, journalists, and the public are asking hard questions about the lead-up to the attacks, the political decisions made in their aftermath, and the long-term consequences of the war on terror. We're re-examining evidence, studying declassified documents, and hearing new perspectives. 9/11 is finally, slowly transitioning from a current event into a historical one. Or consider the war in Afghanistan. While the conflict was ongoing, it was framed with powerful slogans like Operation Enduring Freedom and sold to the public as a necessary war for global peace and security. The narrative was tightly controlled. But as soon as the war ended and the troops withdrew, a new set of questions erupted. What was actually achieved? Who truly benefited from 2 decades of conflict? And who suffered the most? These are questions that were difficult, if not impossible, to ask while the fighting was still happening. History begins right there, at the exact moment when slogans are replaced by questions. Let's go even further back in time, to the Atlantic slave trade. For centuries, the buying and selling of human beings was not only legal, but was openly described in respectable terms. It was called business, trade, or even a civilizing mission. The people with power wrote the story, and their story presented it as normal. Today, we call it what it truly was, a monstrous crime against humanity. Why did it take so long for this truth to be universally acknowledged? Because the people who suffered, the millions of enslaved men, women, and children, had no power. Their voices were silenced. The people who held the whips, the chains, and the pens were the ones who wrote the official record, and their record was a lie. History, as it was taught for generations, reflected the perspective of the oppressor, not the oppressed. This brings us to a hard but honest truth. History is very often written by the powerful. It is shaped by the victors of wars, the rulers of nations, and the wealthiest members of society, and because of this, some truths are deliberately buried. Some lies are polished until they shine like facts, and the voices of countless ordinary people, minorities, and the defeated are never heard. The history you learned in school from textbooks? It's rarely the full story. More often than not, it's the approved story, a version of the past that has been sanctioned by those in power to serve a particular agenda. It's a narrative designed to create a specific national identity or justify past actions. So if textbooks don't tell the whole story, where is real history hidden? Real history, the unfiltered truth of the past, lives in places far from the sanitized pages of a schoolbook. It's hidden in old dusty archives, tucked away in personal letters and private diaries. It's found in forgotten government files that were once stamped top secret. Tea survives in the memories of ordinary people, in the songs, poems, and stories passed down through generations, stories that were never allowed into the official narrative. Sometimes the most important historical truths are the ones we were never taught in the first place. The real work of understanding the past involves digging for these hidden stories and listening to the voices that have been silenced. Ultimately, we have to realize that history is not just what happened. History is what was written down, and, crucially, what was allowed to be written down. This is why we must always approach history with a critical eye. It should be questioned, debated, and challenged, not blindly accepted as gospel truth. The past is not a fixed, static thing. It is a dynamic and contested space where new evidence and new perspectives can completely change our understanding of what came before. So the next time you hear someone say, "This is history in the making," take a moment to think. What we believe to be true today could easily become a point of contention tomorrow. What seems unimportant and is ignored now might become a central piece of the historical puzzle in the future. The reality is simple, and it's something we should never forget. Time does not create history. Truth does, and the truth, more often than not, arrives late. Thanks for watching. If you found this perspective valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves to question everything. See you next time.